Hello. So here we are on day 5 of our sessions. So hope you've had a nice day today. I hope some of you got outside in the lovely sunshine. Just waiting for a couple of things to sort themselves out, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll. So I gave you guys some homework to do. So I know what I was going to do. I've just remembered what I've forgotten. So you'll have to wait till Monday to see the picture behind me of my hero who came up or rather popularized the positive mental attitude. So did anybody look it up? Did anybody get the answers? If you did, please put them on the comments. It'd be nice to find out whether anybody kind of looked it up. So I asked you to do some lazy tables. So we've been working on them, the unstressed side of things. We've been working throughout the week, and tonight we're going to have a quick look at the key. Let's have a look. My almost infamous board of words. So we've got 10 words. So at the beginning of the week we started with meaningful practice. Okay, so we were looking at how just practicing time and time again will not get you anywhere. You've got to have meaningful practice. So we were talking about objectives. You've got to have an objective. You've got to have some sort of possibility of failure. So there's every exercise you do has to have a sense of a possibility of failure. Else there's no challenge there. There's no objective that and you're not going to learn. Right? So meaningful practice requires some sort of failure possibility, and that was failure. So then I started talking about feedback, and I gave the example of the golf that you need to hit the ball, say 10 times to get 9 possibilities of using the feedback. So it's super important to have feedback. Again, you can't learn without feedback. In fact, this is the common denominator of the 10 words. You're not going to progress. You're not going to learn without feedback. So as a coach, it's my job to give you feedback, but the same as Julian and whoever's on the side of the pool, Ollie or Graham, they give you feedback, but really this is quite a one-dimensional idea of feedback. I can only tell you 1 or 2 things. If you pay for a one-to-one session with Marco or Julian, you'll get quite a lot of feedback. You'll get half an hour's worth of feedback. Maybe not half an hour's worth of feedback, because obviously you're talking about things, passing information over, but you're going to get significantly more feedback. But that's not where it's at. Okay, that's not where it's at, and you've got to be honest about this. You've got to realise that just going once a week to a session, or once a week and then having a private session, you're going to get very limited amount of feedback, and you've got to be honest with yourself. Okay, so when somebody gives you feedback, if it's somebody you respect, you've got to say, okay, you've got to be honest with yourself and. Okay, I'm going to believe this person. I'm going to take them at their word, and try and accept what they've said. But equally well, when you're doing your own training, honesty is that key. And I gave the example last night of the pyramids, where you come up, you're meant to take 4 breaths, and you sneakily take 5. Well, it's not sneaky. Just take 5 and be honest about it. Say, I took 5. So that's the honesty, and then the next thing we're gonna talk about is this word here, which and I'm not sure you can kind of read. It says internalization. Okay, internalization. And this beautifully links together with the feedback you've got to be honest with. And honesty, and I said you're going to get a limited amount of feedback from the person on the side of the pool. You've got to have internalization. You've got to internalize the motivation. You've got to internalize the feedback. You've got to internalize the objectives. If you don't do that, your progress is going to be very, very limited. So just a quick word here about a quick word to our sponsors. So these are 10 words which I teach by, and every day I just say, Arno, pick a word. So Arno's living with us at the moment during lockdown, and he just literally picks a word. So the route we're taking through those words is completely random, okay? And you'll see by the end how they all link in. But at the moment, this is just a random route. So internalization. If you imagine, if you can imagine that far back when you were a child, small child, learning piano, and your parents said, play piano, come on, do an hour's piano. Oh, I don't want to do piano. Play guitar, come on, sit down. I don't want to play guitar, I don't want to practice piano. And then all of a sudden, your friends were in a band. Or all of a sudden, there was that girl or that boy you liked, and I'm going to impress them. And all of a sudden, all you could do was practice. But more than that, the practice you did, suddenly you came on leaps and bounds, and you can put this to piano or guitar or skateboarding or any activity, any cooking, whatever you've done in your life. When you were hassled as a kid, you've got to do the cooking. No, I don't like doing the cooking. But one day, just something sparked you, bam, and you just wanted to cook. You weren't better instantly, but your practice and your motivation was 100 times better, 100% better. And that's when you start learning. Why? Because you internalized the motivation. And that is essential for you to progress. Now, I can teach somebody, you can teach somebody anything if you just whip them hard enough. But are they going to become good at it? Probably not. But if you get somebody who wants to do something, who's coming and asking questions, they're going to get good at it. Whatever it is, they are going to get good at it. And so, as a personally, and I notice this stream is meant for everybody, but I'm talking now about me personally as a coach and my coaching style. I will not go up to people and say, hey, you need to work harder. Hey, why don't you do this? You do. I don't. That's not my coaching style. But if you come and ask me, hey Marcus, I really want to step up to the next level. Hey Marcus, what are the chances of me being able to do this competition or this trip or this photograph technique or something? Then I will tell you, and I guarantee you'll be able to do it. Whatever it is you're asking, I guarantee you'll be able to do it. You want to go to the World Championships? Yeah, you can. Maybe not this year because it might not be on, but maybe not this year because it's only a couple of months' time, but you will be able to do it. As soon as you ask, as soon as you genuinely come up to me and say, can I do this? How can I? No, not can I do this? How can I do this? You've internalized the motivation and you're going to do it. You will do it. So that's super, super important. You can learn things, you can progress, but it's going to be super slow without the internalization. And that's one meaning of the word. But it also fits in with what I was saying earlier in the week about internalization of skills. So when you learn a new skill, you have to be aware of what you're doing. So first off, if you're gonna move, anybody who's done the foundation course with us knows you have to do the yoga session, which is good for you because it's yoga, it's stretching, etc., etc. But the most important thing is just being aware of standing, being aware of moving, being aware of breathing and moving. And once you're aware of what you're doing now, then you can start being aware of what you want to do. And this is part of that internalization of skills. So you need to internalize where you are at. Then you learn new skills. They're new, they're odd, they're awkward. You can't quite do them. But then you learn them and then you internalize them. So this is something I mentioned earlier in the week about you want your skills to be second nature. You want them to be easy, okay? You don't want to be thinking about them because that's a waste of energy. Using the brain to think about what you're doing, waste of time. Right? So you need to internalize those skills, really internalize them. And I'm going to go back to the beginning of the week when I was talking about Matthew Syed and his book, Bounce, which hopefully a few of you have ordered and are going to read. And he gave a beautiful example. So he went along to a table tennis club, and these young kids were playing table tennis, and he said, and they were at club level, and he said, I'm going to tap my foot, and I want you to tell me when I'm tapping my foot. And they were playing, and he tapped his foot, and some of them saw it, heard it, some of them didn't, and some of them heard him tap and kind of stopped and missed the ball. It was kind of a good level. Then he went to a national level group. So there's international players, this national coaching group. He said, I'm going to tap my foot. Just tell me when you hear it. Now playing away, and he tapped his foot. No reaction. Afterwards he said, you didn't hear it? Oh yeah, no, you tapped it 3 times at the first ping, and then you tapped it 5 times later on. Sorry, I didn't think you wanted me to stop playing. And that's because they were comfortable playing table tennis. They were just like comfortable. They'd internalized those skills. They could just do it, and then tap his foot. Yeah, they counted how many times he was tapping his foot because they'd internalized the skills. So adding one more thing on was easy for them. In fact, at this point, I'm gonna tell another story, exactly the same point, and I love this, and how we can take on more information, and then we can internalize a load of it, and then we can take on more information. And we internalize it, and then we can take on more information. A really good friend of mine was had been given some helicopter flying lessons. And they were flying away, and they'd learnt the basic skills, up, down, and keeping it, hovering and moving, etc., etc. They'd learnt these skills, and they could do it. And first time they were allowed to control this helicopter, first time when they were controlling everything themselves, the instructor said, "Hey, what's your name?" And they were doing this, and they couldn't speak. It was one too many things. There was one too many things. They couldn't think about the flying of the helicopter and say their name. They couldn't do it. But, of course, if you speak to a pilot when he's flying it and then say, "What's your name?" he'll just have a conversation with you because he's internalized those skills. But while you're thinking about those skills, it takes your entire brain to be thinking about those skills. You can't do anything else. So he was flying this helicopter and they, "What's your name?" He couldn't say his name and do all these other things that he had only just learned. So let's bring this back to freediving. If you're swimming down and you're thinking about your technique, if you are swimming down and you're thinking about the depth or the equalization or pulling up, and those skills are still fresh, you're going to be tensed in another point. You can't be thinking about pulling up air and monofining well if you can't do both of them automatically. You can't do it. Add to that the lanyard getting a little bit caught on a rope, you're shot. Okay, tension's going to come in. You can't equalize and do that and think about the other. So, and that's just in a competition scenario where it's everything's set. Competition's the easiest place to dive because everything is guaranteed and set and perfect, and you know exactly which way is up and down. You know the safety's there. You know everything about that dive. So even in the easiest, simplest freedive scenario, it's easy to see if you haven't internalized those skills, you're going to have trouble being efficient. And that's the key. Don't forget, I say it all the time, and I think I've said it this week, but I say all the time, efficiency is our goal. We want to be efficient. That's the only thing we want, efficiency. So you can't be efficient if you haven't internalized those skills. So that's our word for the day. You still can't see it, internalization, but I'm going to get my assistant to rewrite that a little bit better. So, internalization of the motivation, internalization of those skills. Super important. You get 2 words for the price of 1. Okay, so let me go on to the NoTanx, the NTX word of the day, or aspect. It's not a word, it's an aspect. Yesterday we were looking at adaptation. Also, the day before we're doing bedtime. Was it yesterday I was doing bedtime stretches? Day before. And so it was an adaptation. So that's the area of freediving. We're looking at adaptation and stretching. And then we've got adaptation of depth. And I like this point here because we've done a week of this, and I like to bring it round to where we started from. Now, adaptation to depth. The easiest way to do to become adapted to depth is to be at depth. The easiest way is to just be there. Except it's actually not that easy in practice, because if you're working at the mid-20s, 20 meters deep, and I say, yeah, the easiest way to become adapted to depth is to be at depth. Well, you've got to find somewhere that's in the mid-20s, that's not like cold and green, that you can go there and hang out at 20 odd meters. Right? Of course, if you're if you are at 70 meters, it's even harder to find somewhere to hang out at 70 meters. Okay? But we'll come back to alternatives. Adaptation to depth means spending time at depth. So ideally, if you can, you want to get to say you're looking at mid-20s, you want to sit at 20 meters and look down, so you know you're comfortable, you know you're good for 20 meters or so, your equalization's fine, so you can sit there, you go there, sit there for a couple of seconds looking down going, yeah, well, I feel fine here, I'm looking over there, that looks fine. Yeah, so you can do that 2 or 3 times, and then you know you're good at 20, you know you're good at 20, past 20, so you can step on with faith, okay, with a good knowledge and confidence that you're going to get there. You're not going to get to 20 and go, gosh, I'm really scared about that next. No, because you've been there and you looked at it. You've been there and looked at it. And this is where we bring the sled in. We bring the sled in not to go deep, but to go to the depths that we already know we can do easier. See, if you go down to 20 meters, say, and swim down 20 meters, hang out for a second, just to make the numbers good, hang out for a second, come back up, you spent 1 second at 20 meters. And if that's, if you're looking at doing mid-20s, 20-meter dive is going to, kind of knock you out. Maybe you have to do it twice. Say you can do it 3, 4 times. Hey, you can do it 4 times. You've spent 4 seconds at 20 meters. And I've said adaptation to depth means being at depth. If you take a sled down, no effort, a decent sled like the NoTanx sled, just a quick advert. You go down on a NoTanx sled, super smooth, super nice, dunk, you sit down at 20 meters, you're sitting there, no effort, you can hang out there for 10 seconds, fill the bag, come back up. You've already in one dive spent more than twice the amount of time at that depth than you had when you were just swimming down. So you could do 4 dives to 20 meters swimming down. On a sled, 5, 6, And if you do 5 dives, that's 50 seconds. If you do 6 dives, that's 60 seconds. So you've spent like so much more time at 20 meters. And don't forget, your objective was to spend time at depth. You are gonna be looking down at the mid-20s going, that's easy, because you spent more than a minute there, not 1 second, not 5 seconds, a minute. So that's how you can use a sled, not to go deeper, but to get accustomed to those depths. So we live in London. We've got Raisbury, which is 10 meters deep. So yes, of course, you could go to 8 meters, hang around at 8 meters, look down at 10, if that's where you're trying to get to. Absolutely fine. Raisbury in Staines, near Heathrow, perfect. Right. When you start going a little bit deeper than that, you've got to start changing things. So we've got different ways of doing this. And the first way is to do the exercises name and number. Remember that I mentioned name and number when we were talking about bedtime stretches. The name and number is the wet version of the bedtime stretches, or rather, the name and number sequence includes the bedtime stretches when in a pool. So, and if you remember back to that day, I said when I taught it to Guillaume, the first thing he said was, "Oh, whoa, sitting dry." He was sitting dry. I went, "Whoa, that felt like it being at 120 meters." So I can guarantee I can get you to feel like what it's like to be at 120 meters when sitting dry. Imagine putting that into a lake or into a swimming pool. Raisbury is 10 meters deep, so we can emulate depth. And you don't need 10 meters. You can do it in 5 meters. You can do it in 2 meters. You can do it in a normal swimming pool. Okay, so you can emulate these depths. So next time you get the chance to do name and number, unless I specifically say don't stay at the bottom, in which case it's an equalization exercise where if you hit the bottom you can equalize. That's it. Exercise done. But the next ones in the series, you can sit there and for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, acknowledge, be aware of the depth, acknowledge the depth. So there's a flexibility side of it, but there's also the adaptation side of it, the adaptation to depth. Spend some time there. It feels really uncomfortable. If you've stepped it on past your comfort zone, where there's a possibility of failure, where you may not make it to the bottom, when you do get to the bottom, believe me, you'll feel uncomfortable. You will feel uncomfortable. And you stay there for a second, that's awesome. You've done it for a second. Stay there for 2. And we're not talking about breath hold here. This is super easy. You can do this in a swimming pool. It's super safe. Your buddy's leg is by your hand. You can pull yourself straight up. Okay, you're not hanging around at 70 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters, hanging out at 2 meters. But you can still sit there for 2 seconds. And I'll tell you that when you're doing those exercises and the pressure's there, you feel super uncomfortable. 2 seconds is a long time. When you can hang out there for 5 seconds, you start getting comfortable with it. You start becoming adapted to the depth. Now, there is one thing you can't do, or that doesn't simulate, is the fact that you've got your buddy's leg next to you so you can come straight up. That's not the same as having 20 meters of water above you, 30 meters of water above you, 40 feet, whatever, water above you. That's genuinely above you. But what you can do is visualize it. Once you've done the name and number stretches series in the pool and you know what it feels like, then you can step back and do a bedtime stretch. You can feel it and you go, oh yeah, that feels like being at the bottom of the pool. Or as in Guillaume's case, that's what it feels like to be at 120 meters. Then, when you start doing your visualizations, like we did on day 1, when you get down to those bottom depths, one of the steps you put in is feel the depth. So when I was talking you through it on Monday, we went down and I was saying, do this hard fin kick once, twice, up to 6, mediums, French, glide. I was telling you all these specific things to do. One of the steps will be feel the pressure, unpack, equalize. Feel the pressure, unpack, equalize. Feel the pressure, unpack, equalize. I didn't even mention unpacking during that visualization. Why didn't I mention it? Because we hadn't done unpacking, but now we have. So you can go back to that visualization. You can do your visualization walks, and every step, be aware of pressure, unpack, equalize. Be aware of the pressure, unpack, equalize. And it's super, super important, because when you dive again next time and you're going deep, that's in your cycle. That's in your the steps as you go down. So you're a little bit tense. Be aware of the pressure. Soften. Let the ocean give you a nice hug. Unpack. Equalize. Good. I've sunk a little bit further, so I'm a little bit tense again. Acknowledge the pressure. Unpack. Equalize. And that takes much, much longer than when you're walking. Aware of the depth, unpack, equalize. Aware of depth, unpack, equalize. It's like that. That's why you do it to the walking, because that's the rhythm. But when you're actually diving, it's be aware of the pressure. Unpack. Equalize. And we practice faster than we need it in reality. There's no point in practicing it slow, and then when you get in reality, you go, oh my gosh, this is really quick. You want it the other way around. So this is how it all fits in. So we start literally, or rather we finish today where we started off, with visualizations of the depth. And with that, with the knowledge that you can get in the pool, or even from bedtime stretches, because we're not getting in pools at the moment, so it's got to be bedtime stretches. With that knowledge, with that awareness, with that internalization of the feeling of being at whatever depth your maximum kind of pressure awareness is, whether it's Guillaume's 120 meters, whether it's 20 meters or 10 meters or 5 meters, once you've felt it, been aware of it, internalized that knowledge, that awareness, that feeling, then when you do your visualization, it comes alive, because you can start putting it into your visualization. And hopefully, when you do your visualizations at the weekend, because you've got so much to do this weekend, you've got all the exercises to do. You've got 2 days to do them in, so I've given you 4 exercises to do so far. So you can do, in fact, pretty much you can do them all in one day. But you do 2 on one day, 2 on the other day. That's fine. Got a lot to do. Hopefully, I'll tell you this now. When you do your visualization walks, so walking in the park, because you're allowed to walk in the park. When you're walking in the park, you are going through the steps and steps and steps, and hopefully you'll go feel the pressure, and you will be aware of it, and it will take you out. You'll go, whoa, yeah, that's a good point, and I would be feeling the pressure like that. Oh, Struth, I've missed my next step. Ba-bam, ba-bam. That's the way it should be. Your visualization is so real, it puts you off. Exactly as I said back at the beginning, that, if it puts you off, then you're not ready to go a little bit deeper. When you can sit there, acknowledge it, feel that pressure, whether it's bedtime stretches in the water or depth, doesn't matter. I hope that makes sense. And I'm not going to give you any extra homework to do today. Okay, we can still be looking up the positive mental attitude. And I will dig it out. I saw it the other day. So positive mental attitude. You've got 2 books to buy. So you've got Tony Buzan, Use Your Head. Somebody asked. They didn't think they'd be able to understand it. As from a different country. I think they're from Germany, and I believe Use Your Head was in German. It's definitely, in fact, no, I know it's been in German. It's been printed in all the languages. It's in a mid-70s book. It's a bestseller. So Tony Buzan, Use Your Head, definitely in every language that that you need. And Bounce by Matthew Syed. They're the 2 books. Look into them. If you can buy them, borrow them, that's fine. And then you've got the 4 exercises we were doing. So you've got visualization, which we're tying in with meditation. And keep putting your 3 words, what meditation means to you on day 1, please. So with meditation, you've got the ETT. Don't forget your ETT. Keep it with you at all times. Always know where your ETT is. And bedtime stretches. Okay. Lazy tables in there as well. So we did the lazy tables last night. So you should be able to start to fit all of those things together. So you've got visualization, lazy tables, meditation, which kind of goes with everything, bedtime stretches, and ETT. So I think that's it. I've gone slightly over time, and I will see you on Monday. Please, when this goes up live later tonight, please put some comments down below. Ask questions, I'll answer them. Please put your comments about what you felt about each of the 5 things I've asked you to do. So there's 4 exercises, kind of 5 things to do, as well as PMA, positive mental attitude. Who brought it to our attention? So lovely. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that gives you a little bit more things to think about while you're training. Tonight, brought to you by Internalization and Adaptation to Depth. Ciao, ciao. See you Monday.